Okay, very good. Well, welcome to Exhibition Spotlight. My name is Jessica Smith. I do communications and engagement here at the Pentacrest Museums, which are, of course, the Museum of Natural History, hence the fake Rusty the Giant Sloth arm behind me. And the Old Capitol Museum, which is where we have wonderful changing exhibits, and we have this virtual program, Exhibition Spotlight, that we use to examine them from some different angles and build some additional context with those exhibits in that space. And that's what we're doing today. Before we get started, I would like to read the University of Iowa Acknowledgement of Land and Sovereignty, an excerpt from it. As an academic institution, it is our responsibility to acknowledge the sovereignty and the traditional territories of tribal nations and the treaties that were used to remove these tribal nations and the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution since 1847. To see this entire statement, tribal nations, territories, and treaties that are associated with the land which the University of Iowa occupies, you can visit the Native American Council's website or use this QR code here on the screen now. So I want to take a moment to give some informal introductions to a wonderful group of panelists that we have today that we've asked to come along and help us take a look at this exhibit and the work and life of F.W. Kent. I have Allison Johnson here, cataloging librarian from the State Historical Society of Iowa. Hi, Allison. Thanks for being here. Hi. And feel free to, our panelists, feel free to unmute. It's not like the regular Zoom. I think when you're unmuted and we can hear you, then your screen pops up for others. So hi there.
Hi.
Hi. We have two university photographers with us today, both from the Office of Strategic Communication. First, we have Tim Schoon. Thanks for being here, Tim. Hi. Yeah, of course. Thank you. And Justin Torner.
Hello.
Hi, Justin. Thanks for being here. Last but certainly not least, we have Brad Friedhoff, Conservation Program Manager from Johnson County Conservation Board. Thanks for being here, Brad.
Thank you. Joining you from Kent Park today.
Very good. Oh my gosh. And thanks for bringing the deer.
Bet.
Also glad he could make it. Not on my introduction slide here, but just as important is our director, Pentacrest Museums director, Liz Crooks, who we've had join as a panelist for additional context and all the fun. Hi, Liz.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thanks for being here, everyone. I know that, let's see, we have a nice group of attendees who have joined in now. So again, thank you so much for registering for this program and staying connected with programming happening here at the Pentacrest Museums. We have some special folks in the audience, dear colleagues, community members, I think even some family members of Kent. If I'm not mistaken, I think my mother registered for this program. So very special group of attendees here today. Really happy to have you. I'd like to take a little time and tell you about the exhibit itself before we start digging into it and looking at it from different perspectives. Through his lens, F.W. Kent's University of Iowa is a selection of some archival work of our first university photographer. We would really like to give a special thank you to the Iowa Digital Library for sharing some of those photos, as well as the State Historical Society of Iowa. Thank you, Allison.
Yes.
This exhibit is just a small selection of the huge body of work that Kent left and legacy here at the University of Iowa. Many of us are very familiar with the photos. If you live in and around this area or work at the university, you are met with them all the time. It's been a really wonderful new understanding of all of ours in researching this exhibit and learning more about Kent, that to know Kent was to be on his Christmas card list every year and to be his pen pal and to be his friend for life. So we know this is a very special exhibit to many people. We're really proud to have it. It actually was on display many years ago and has circled back around because his work never gets old, or maybe it does get old and that's why it's special to us. But it is in our space, and we would like to invite anyone to come see it. It's in the Old Capitol on the ground floor in the Hanson Humanities Gallery. Admission is always free. We are open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please come check it out. And if you're watching the recording of this, maybe it's not up anymore, but you could visit our website, Pentacrest Museums at uiowa.edu, to find out what is up. I'm sure it's really great too. Okay, so See if I can get going here. Oh, of course, you can come visit anytime. Here's a picture of me just touring some folks through it the other day. Come check it out. We'd love to talk to you about it, or you can have a tour on your own. I'd like to read an excerpt from the exhibit itself to sort of give everyone an idea of what we've been highlighting in this space with regard to Kent and his work here at the university. We say F.W. Kent photographed both the everyday and the extraordinary at the University of Iowa. From 1923 until 1925, Kent was a lecturer and photography instructor before later serving as UI's consulting photographer between 1936 and 1947. Kent founded University Photo Service in 1947 and was the manager there until 1963. For the next 12 years, Kent was a part-time photographer of special projects there, retiring in 1975. Today, there are more than 50,000 pieces by Kent in the university's archival collections. A wonderful quote from him, "I just started taking pictures and I never stopped." Kent was an aerial photographer during World War I, which came quite in handy around here with his work at the university. He explored color photography for Eastman Kodak, made strides in the field of microscopic photography, contributing to advancements in medical and scientific research. Detailed photographs by Kent of the 1922 restoration of the old Capitol aided in subsequent restorations of the building. He holds the honor of first recipient of the Iowa City Historic Preservation Commission Award in 1984 for archiving the growth of the area through his photographs. Also an avid naturalist and birder, F.W. Kent Park, west of Iowa City, was named after him. We'll talk about that more with Brad. Kent's work captures the essence of our campus through his lens, his many years of documentation of students, sports, and campus live on today and were instrumental in preserving our pictorial history. So moving on, I'd really like to take a moment. I introduced her briefly, but to give a proper introduction, tell you a little bit about our guest, Allison Johnson. It made perfect sense for us to pair with the State Historical Society to look into this exhibit and get some additional context because, as I said, the university has a large body of work of Kent's relating to our campus, but at the State Historical Society, everything else is there. And it is amazing what they have, not only with regard to Kent, what you are preserving there and the work you're doing is incredibly important. And we're so grateful for how open you've been to sharing with us. And we're really happy you're here, Allison. So Allison is the cataloging librarian at the State Historical Society of Iowa and Iowa City. Allison catalogs library and archival materials and serves the public with reference requests about Iowa history, just like us. But she's the right person to go to. She enjoys piquing students' interests and engaging them and their special collections materials through class visits. Thank you again for being here, Allison. Take it away.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so I'm Allison Johnson, a librarian at the State Historical Society of Iowa in Iowa City. I've been here for over 7 years in my current role, but I also worked here when I was a student during my undergraduate degree in history at the University of Iowa. We are downtown Iowa City on the corner of Iowa Avenue and Gilbert Street. We're open to the public Tuesdays to Fridays from 9 to 4:30. We'd love to help you learn more about whatever you're interested in Iowa history. So come see us, come ask us what we've got. This is a picture of our building. And I'm gonna go to the next slide here. Okay, so sometime before F.W. Kent's death in 1984, he decided to divide his donations to the archives between the University of Iowa Special Collections and the State Historical Society of Iowa. The university kind of got his professional things, his photos related to his professional career. And a lot of what we have here is related to his personal life. And so this is an example of just one page from one of his scrapbooks of his early life when he grew up in DeWitt. That's him in the top right there. That's a self-portrait of him. We have an enormous Kent collections here. From him and also from his family. We have more than 30 photo albums, some of which have like over 2,000 photos in each album. We have hundreds of glass plate negatives from his time in DeWitt, slides, We have 10 oral histories, recordings. We have family documents, diaries, correspondence, and we also have collections from 2 of his children, Tom Kent and Barbara Buckley Greenleaf. All right, let's go to the next one. This is a fun picture. This is just an example of a picture he would have taken during his college years. This would have been 2 years after he came to Iowa City. Sorry, he
But
was
that's
okay.
not Tom jumping off the bridge, right?
No, no, no.
I love this photo because that was like the big complaint with the new bridge, right?
I
That
know.
people were jumping up, but that wasn't a new thing, was it?
I guess not. Yeah, I was surprised to see that in there. So let's see. So he started college in 1911. He came to Iowa City on a scholarship. This is a fun photo. Let's see. So while in Iowa City, he began work at the Townsend Studio, who was an established photographer in Iowa City. This is a really neat shot of him kind of dreaming of his sweetheart and his future wife, Clara Hartman. This is a neat darkroom trick. So you can see that he is laying here and it's like, it's really fun. And I like this Iowa pillow here next to him. So when he first came to town, he lived in a boarding house, but shortly after, when he got his job at the Townsend Studio, he started living in the men's dressing room of the studio. And one of his jobs was to feed the furnace with coal. And now I'm going to play an audio clip of him explaining this to his granddaughter. This is from 1979. It's a little bit hard to hear, but it's fun him telling her, you know, how he kind of got started. I think you might have to hit play, Jessica.
Oh, gladly.
Thank you.
Another chap, a photographer who worked his way through school taking photographs. He was a senior. And he had a job at the old Townsend studio on Clinton Street. I got acquainted with him. Before he left, he traded me out of my good camera for another one, which was a piece of junk. But I got the job there where he was in the studio, and I got a room there, taking care of the place, firing the furnace and cleaning and sweeping. I slept in there. Men's, they had 2 dressing rooms off the studio. I slept in the men's dressing room, just across from the campus, about where Joe's place is, I think, now.
Yeah. Did they have?
Okay, so it's just kind of fun hearing him explain that to her. And that is part of a very long interview that anybody is welcome to come here and listen to, or we can also make digital files for people. So that was done in 1979. Here's some more examples of his photography. So here, let's see, this is his future wife, Clara, and she's standing in this waterfall. You'll hear more about this in a minute, but these are the 4 people down here. This is him and Clara, and then their 2 best friends, Al Bailey and Muriel. And then the shot here, this is another darkroom trick that he's got going with the tinting. And so let's see here, moving on. Okay, so this is the honeymoon. So we've got one photo here of them. They took a honeymoon trip, canoe trip from Iowa City to Burlington. FW and Clara were married on the same day as their best friends, Al and Muriel. They went on a honeymoon together, and afterward, he made this really, really special photo album of their trip. It's just, I don't know, it's just really romantic, and it's like you just have to see it. Just the way that he arranged it and the way that you can just tell like how in love he was with Clara. It's just so, so sweet. And then I'm going to play a little audio clip now of it's him telling his granddaughter, like, you have to come check it out. You know, you have to just see it.
Oh, look what I did there. Here we go. Let's try it again.
You didn't get married in the same place, wasn't like a wedding, just the same day, right?
No, the same that time. The next day we started off. You've seen that album, haven't you?
I'm not sure if I have, Grandpa.
That's something.
No, but we should go through that, you know.
Oh, you ought to go through some of those albums. You'll get more out of them than talking to them.
Yeah, what should we do? Get one of those now and have that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you've included this slide. Also, I hadn't heard that audio clip. It's so special. I keep thinking about how special it is that you have the audio to go with the huge collection that you have, but then really some of the audio is him saying like, just look at my life's work. I already laid it out. It's the best it could possibly be. And it really is. And I'm so happy that you have this particular photo and this story in here because just before we met you, Allison, Liz and I, and all of us at the museums had just learned about this honeymoon canoe trip from a totally different avenue. We were obsessed with this story, and then all of a sudden we're in there, and you're showing us the album that built the entire story out. Liz, would you mind popping in and telling everyone how we learned about this and what we learned about this honeymoon?
Oh, I'd love to. Uh, we have here at the Museum of Natural History, of course, the Laysan Island Cyclorama. And we received a phone call probably 6 months ago from a gentleman who had a painting painted by the muralist Charles Corwin, and he wanted to give it to us. And so there was a lot of back and forth, but when we collected the painting, the oil painting, he also provided us history that his grandfather had written. His grandfather, it turns out, was Alfred Bailey, who was at that point, had been the director of the Denver Natural History Museum. But it's the same Alfred Bailey that was F.W. Kent's best friend. And in that biography of Bailey, we read all about their friendship. From Bailey's point of view, we realized that they did get married indeed on the same day and had this canoe trip. In his biography, he also included that list of expenses. But we also found out that Bailey went to Laysan Island as part of a follow-up expedition in 1912, and he took Fred Kent's camera with him, and the photos that we have of Laysan Island were taken with Kent's camera, which is just amazing to me. And then we visit Allison, and there's this photo album of all of them together, and the documentation that's included in it is you couldn't ask for a better historian than F.W. Kent. It's just amazing.
It really is
beautiful. It was so neat to look through it. We just learned about that. And that, I mean, of course, it happens for us, or Liz and I were looking all the time for this intersection between the Museum of Natural History and Old Capitol Museum. It's what we do. We represent these two museums. But that was like, what? We have a Kent exhibit up, and we just learned this thing about Bailey, and they were together. What? What? And you had everything there. It was so special to see. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, it's really it's really something.
It is.
Okay, I just have a few more. So this is just it's hard to you can't really overstate how large these collections are. So this is just a really small fraction of the extent to which he documented his own family. So this is just a page from one of his albums. This is his first child, his oldest child, Jim. And the album is called 303 Richard Street. So this is where they lived. FW and Clara had 4 children, Jim, Barbara, Charles, and Tom. And it was just really hard for me to pick, just a few to show off. So I would invite you to come see more if you're interested. And then I haven't really gotten into his birding and his outdoor interests, which Brad will talk about more, but we have a lot of that here at the State Historical Society as well. So I just picked 2, but I mean, there just are so many. This is a really beautiful shot at Lake McBride. And then the other one I picked is also from Lake McBride here. That's just, I don't know. And maybe it's because it's autumn right now and it's just, wow, it's just so pretty. So anyway, yeah, please come check it out if you're interested in seeing more of what we have here.
Oh, Allison, thank you so much. I want to make sure all of our, I didn't mention this to our attendees. If you're participating live, there's a couple of things I should tell you. There's a chat. If there's anything that you want to informally toss in, you don't have to wait till we will have a discussion session and a Q&A at the end. But if there's anything you want to add, please do. And there's also a raise your hand function, I think, as well, and I can allow participants to talk. So if anyone is wanting to add in, I think that we are all collectively, not just people on this panel today, but we are all collectively keepers of this history, especially seeing the many special people that we have in the audience today. Allison, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to have some questions for you in the Q&A. You have really cool stuff over there. We're moving forward now. I introduced you already to Tim Schoon and Justin Torner, university photographers at the Office of Strategic Communication here at the University of Iowa. It was very apparent to Liz and I that we really needed to, well, first of all, we love Tim and Justin and all the work that they do, and we work with them a lot, and we use the work that they put out for all of campus often. But it was apparent to us, we need to get this perspective of who's doing this work today and how it's the same and how it's different. And we need some real photographers that know stuff about cameras and that can be telling us what we're looking at. And we came to the right place, of course. I'm going to read your proper bios now, not to embarrass you, but you're both pretty impressive guys. Tim, photographer, Office of Strategic Communication from the University of Iowa. Tim has been a photographer here since 2001. In that time, he's documented the life of the university by photographing students, faculty, staff, events, activities, games, research, teaching, service, and beautiful campus scenery. 2001 as a start date is sticking out as also a time when there was a fire here in Iowa City, and I think that you famously took many of those photos, Tim. Maybe we'll see some of those. Thank you for being here. And of course, Justin, commercial photographer, also at the Office of Strategic Communication at the University of Iowa. Justin has been with the university since 2015, documenting student life, academics, and university events, and creating images featured in admissions recruitment, advancement, and university communications across multiple mediums and platforms. Speaking of Old Capitol and history and taking photos, Justin has some special history with Old Cap and some photos maybe that were taken of a sunset and meeting someone special that might be in our attendance audience today. Is that true, Justin?
That is true.
Hi,
I
Casey.
met my wife while shooting pictures at the Old Capitol.
Perfect. Perfect. I just saw the other day some amazing photos from your wedding day and the beautiful couch or chase in the women's restroom at Old Cap. That's very special as well. So happy that you're here with us. I'm going to send it away. Are you guys able to control this? You ready to take it over?
So Tim and I shoot as marketing photographers for the university. We shoot assignment-based shoots, anything from academics to athletic events. But from the point of marketing, we're less documentarians at the university and more towards advancement in recruitment, which is it's a different way of looking at the university than FW Kent had, where he really was shoot a picture of everything to document it for historical record. And we do a lot of shooting in the same token that we'll shoot events for documenting the history of the university.
It's just that marketing has taken on such a more prominent role in today's, in today than it ever has before. So the focus is a little bit different, although I think in a lot of cases the outcome is very similar. And we put together some pictures that sort of illustrate that.
This is a lightning storm that happened in October of 2015. It's amazing. You'll see the Old Capitol is the center point of many of our photos. As looking through FW Kent's archives, it was of his as well. It's just documenting the moments that happened on the Pentacrest. Anything can happen, from fires to lightning to just beautiful days. So it's interesting to look back and see how we shoot it similarly.
The technology has changed a lot since FW Kent's time. I guess that the majority of his career, all of his work was done in black and white. Fireworks don't necessarily look great in black and white. And just the sensitivity of the film and now digital has improved so much that what we're able to capture there's just a lot more there that we can do that he was never able to. But despite that, the stuff that he was able to do with the equipment that he had is really remarkable. Going through these pictures, it was fun. Justin and I picked out a selection of pictures that we liked and wanted to show. And then we went looking through the Kent archive to see if we could find something similar. And it was sort of shocking in some cases just how similar things were. like this picture that Justin shot. And then as photographers, we like to find the things that are, you know, visually interesting and will grab you in a way that isn't how you would normally see things. Like this picture that Kent shot using infrared film, and a picture I shot when there was a light exhibit at the old Capitol.
I know, Liz, would you unmute and pipe up and tell everyone what they're looking at that recent? We're so proud of that display.
We were able to host Swiss light artist Gary Hofstetter in 2018, I want to say. Yes, it's been 5 years, 2018. And he came to campus and he used the old Capitol as a backdrop for this phenomenal light show. And Tim was there and he took so many wonderful pictures. And it's one of my favorite all-time events at the museum. So I'm so glad that these pictures are here and live on. And it's really a unique way to use our building and to interact with our building. And it's just wonderful.
I love that exhibit that he did and would love for him to come back sometime.
We want him to. Yes, we very much want him to come back and revisit. He stopped in every state and chose an iconic building in each state. And in Iowa, he chose us. So it was lovely. And yes, we hope to get him back and have an exhibit of the photographs of all of the other buildings that he has illuminated.
So here's an example of documentation versus marketing. Much the same, it's the same location on Pentacrest, but really his angle of view is more towards documenting what life was like, whereas we're almost more towards advertising. And these are student models that I use to show off how the university life is like.
Are those the same light posts, just painted, or did we get an upgrade? And does anybody know? It's amazing.
They're the same.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you're showing this contrast and talking about that, Justin. I was so interested in the conversation when I met with you and Tim. We were sort of talking about maybe some rules that you have when you're going out and shooting. You said, like, you know, we're kind of trying to avoid getting, you know, a car in the photo, or, you know, thinking about what would we be documenting, like someone wearing. So, you know, a cap and gown can live on, maybe some Hawkeye gear, but if it's too fashion forward, then it's going to really date it, and it's going to make that brochure or website look dated right away. And as we know, you know, Kent wasn't doing that. He was really documenting, like you said, and trying to archive a place in time. There are photos of, you know, cars, and everything is very specific to a time period, and it really brings it alive. But it is a big contrast in what you do, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
We'll shoot around things that will date photos because they'll limit the usability of the photos in our archive. However, if you look back at FW Kent's archive, that's almost the appeal to it, is that you do see all the things that brought to life 50 years ago, what it was like.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have a Ford Escort in a photo nowadays, but having an old Ford Model T in the photos back then, it really shows off the university and what it was like back then.
It's very meaningful. Yeah, it's really clear. Thank you for bringing up that that juxtaposition. So we talked about, oh yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Whereas FW Kent had the ability to go and do aerial photos, we have the luxury of having drones nowadays. Both Tim and I are licensed pilots, and we utilize that tool quite a bit now. But it's almost like cheating that we can go up at any time and get aerial images, where this was very, very difficult back in FW Kent's days.
Yeah, and it's something really unique to our campus that we have so much aerial footage of, you know, the development of our area. Not everyone would have that. It was a very special skill set that he had right here in Iowa City. We're really lucky to have those. And your skill set with drones. Not everyone can do that, guys.
The drones make it a lot easier than what he had to work with. I mean, we can just hover and, wait for something to happen, whereas he was, moving in a plane and just much, much more difficult. Changing of seasons is important, and it's, the images that, the campus looks best in the fall and the spring, and for the most part. And it's interesting that, Kent was out shooting basically the same scene at the same time of year. I don't know when that picture of his was taken, but it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
I think that means you all have very good eyes for composition and photography. That's what I think.
Yeah. Underwater, that's a bit different from equipment.
Yeah, the research, research and research photography have both changed a lot. This picture of Justin's with the underwater is, I don't know what Kent's underwater capability would have been, but I'm guessing that it would have not been nearly as easy as what we can do today. And by the same token, the research itself has changed. Brain research on the left and brain research on the right. Just the technology has changed. It's just kind of mind-boggling to think about how much it's changed. Athletics was a huge part of what he did, and it's a big part of what we do, even though athletics has their own photo staff. From a marketing standpoint, athletics is really important to the university. And so we go to Kinnick Stadium and shoot the football games, and the stripes in particular is really popular. In Kinnick Stadium, historic Kinnick Stadium, as they always remind you, there are parts of it that look exactly like it was in Kent's day. And then we've also got the newer parts with the Children's Hospital and everything, but it's all part of the university's history.
I love the compare and contrast. This is a photo that I took at a game a few years ago, but compared what they used to wear going to games back then, and kind of the demeanor and the compare and contrast. We shot the same thing, but yet how much life has changed.
This is another one that really surprised me when I went looking through the Kent archive to match up photos with what we had picked, because even though it's not Kinnick Stadium, it's the exact same angle. And it just goes to show that how thorough Kent was with everything he did. It's like everything we do, there's something that matches up with it from his archive.
That's amazing. And I'm thinking of you guys, and we talked about this a little before, but like I'm imagining Kent in the stadium, and what equipment does he have, and what is on his mind? He's only got one shot for maybe some of these, right? And I mean, you guys, what you're doing is very skillful, of course, and you're thinking about these angles the same way, but you have more than one chance to get the right shot, right?
So on an average football game, I'll come away with 3,000 pictures that I've taken.
Oh my gosh.
Whereas walking around with negative plates and a tripod and a camera and climbing up the stands to get one picture, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Push ball. Who would have known? This one blew me away. We're still doing the same things. Still a big ball.
This is one where it worked kind of the opposite from what I described earlier, where we went looking through his archive to match up pictures with what we had. Justin saw this picture of Kent's from homecoming and asked if I had anything similar from when I shot the homecoming parade just a couple of weeks ago. And it's the same picture. And if I had known about the Kent picture beforehand, I could have shot it in front of the same building. And it's just I'm just continually blown away at how thorough his collection is.
Having the facilities on campus that we do and showing off that they had a swimming pool and how it was used and how we have our rec facility now, just trying to compare and contrast. Shooting res hall life, we do a lot of the same. A lot of these are for marketing purposes, so a lot less documentation reasoning, but Hillcrest back in then and today.
Kids bring too much stuff to college with them now, I think.
I think so. But no twinkly lights in the Kent photo. I think that was missing. Got to have the twinklies, right?
Here's a compare contrast and how the IMU is used between a dance marathon and this was a piano recital.
Turkey has been around forever.
I've been thinking a lot about the photos that are shared of students in a class, and it's this different idea of, and it makes sense that we're doing it, but we're really trying to show our students having this individualized process. There's going to be time and space for you and your growth, and you're gonna, have this experience. And sometimes it's easier to get that photo or really build a connection with one subject. But a lot of the photos in the classroom are, everyone's hovered around one thing, or it's the group experience. I'm noticing that, and that could be, marketing versus documentation. But it's really interesting to me. I could look at compare and contrast of your stuff all day.
A lot of what he did was document the building of campus. This is the visual arts building when it was being constructed a few years ago. I can't remember what building this was that after we can't document it, but we do a lot of the same.
Certain aspects of the university haven't changed at all over the years. I mean, there's going to be a commencement several times a year, and graduates are going to line up with their caps and gowns, and the place changes. I mean, we haven't had an outdoor graduation, I'm not even sure in how long, but the significance of the moment is the same from class to class to class, and it's important to document that. And there's the fire picture you mentioned.
Yeah, this is your first year.
That was my first month.
Oh my gosh, what an entrance. Wow. Yeah, we have on display, it must be a photo from you and some history about what the old Capitol endured and what happened after from that day. But I know that that's a day that everyone remembers, and I feel like everyone has seen one of those photos of yours. Thank you both so much for sharing your work and comparing and digging through the massive archive that we have of Kent's work and sharing some of your best. It's so fascinating. I love that compare and contrast. Thank you so much. I want to give a more formal introduction to Brad Friedhoff, Conservation Program Manager at Johnson County Conservation. Brad has been in the Iowa County Conservation System for the past 26 years. Is that right, Brad? That doesn't seem right. Wow. One of the major projects he is responsible for is the planning, developing, and constructing the county trail system. So we really wanted to connect with Brad because Allison was connecting us so much to some of the the archives of Fred's work as a naturalist, and we were so inspired by it, again, from that intersection with the Museum of Natural History. We wanted to know more. We love Kent Park because we live, of course, here in Iowa City. It's not far at all, and we wanted to know more about that connection, and Brad was so generous with that information, and had the background, and is so fun to talk with too. So Brad, take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
You bet. I love this is a great session. I love learning. This is really interesting for me from a sociological perspective. You guys are really looking at buildings and people, and I'm looking at, that was like 100-year-old tree and now it's gone. Or look at the land, the use of the Iowa River. A few slides ago, we saw people ice skating out on the Iowa River, and now because of the Coralville Dam and fluctuations in the river level, we wouldn't encourage that anymore. So there's so many stories and perspectives that a single photo can provide, and Fred has archived all of this for us. It's just amazing. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the background. I guess I get to be the fun side of Fred Kent, what he did when he wasn't at work or wasn't at home. What was his other side, and who did he kind of hang out with? So first, let me give you a little background about the Johnson County Conservation Board. The goal of the Johnson County Conservation Board, we are a government entity. We have 5 conservation board members that are appointed to 5-year staggered terms. And our real goal is to provide high quality natural resource areas, outdoor recreation opportunities, and conservation education. And I think that ties really well with the character of Fred Kent. You know, that he passed that on to a lot of his children, grandchildren, his love of the outdoors, especially birding. Today, the Johnson County Conservation Board, we manage over 2,800 acres throughout Johnson County, and our headquarters is here at FW Kent Park, and we'll explain that name here in a little moment ahead here. We also have areas now at operation centers at Chongaleska, Waukon, the Peckman Creek Delta in the southern part of Johnson County on the Iowa River, and the Sutliff area along the Cedar River. So let's talk about, we've all called him FW, right? Some people, Fred Kent. And when we had people that stop here at Kent Park, they're like, well, who was Fred Kent? Did he give the property that this park is named after? How did you get this name? So let's tell that story. So it was Frederick Wallace Kent. He was a man of many interests, right? I don't think this guy slept very much. Fred always seemed to be busy, whether it was working at the University of Iowa, doing things at his home at 303 Ronald Street. I have a lot of pictures of his home that people have provided me over the years. And he was a methodical birder. He loved being outdoors, looking at and documenting wildlife, especially birds. And he passed that on to his son, Tom, down the road. But he recorded bird counts, observations from over 3,500 bird watching outings that he held in his lifetime. And that number is probably short, but he was a very active outdoors person. You can see from the canoe stories. But all of this outdoor activity required him to know where those populations were at, right? You just don't go sit outside and wait for the birds to come to you. You can do that, but Fred was obviously going to find the birds. And so he knew Johnson County inch by inch like the back of his hand, and he knew every good area where there was habitat. And so Fred shared that love for birding with his son Tom, and they published a book in 1975 about birding in eastern Iowa. And so let's move on to the next slide here. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it got its name. So the Johnson County Conservation Board, you know, conservation really has a origin here in Johnson County. Thomas Houston McBride, who was the president at the University of Iowa for some time, really got the County Conservation Board thought, the idea, going way back in the 1800s. But it wasn't until the mid to 1960s, 1950s era that county conservation boards really got themselves on the map. And in 1964, the Johnson County voters established the Johnson County Conservation Board here in Johnson County. Today, all 99 counties have a county conservation board. And that original board was 5 members that were appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And as they started acquiring properties to be used for recreational areas that were really nice natural areas, they leaned on the knowledge of the people around them, their friends. And so Fred shared that knowledge. We've seen in many photos, Fred was a very connected person, right? He knew the community. He knew the people in the community. And in 1966, the Johnson County Conservation Board acquired 186 acres of land from Robert LaRue and another 21.83 from Dwight Bud Woods that would eventually become Kent Park. And the reason they acquired this is Fred had a friend, Dr. Webster Gelman, and I left an N off. Dr. Gelman's there. I apologize. He was telling him, hey, this area would be perfect. It has very few roadways or formal roadways, right? There were dirt tracks that farmers utilized. There were very few utility lines, telephone lines. And so it was a great place to go out and explore and find wildlife. And so here we have a picture of Fred out in that terrain, rolling hills west of Iowa City and Coralville. That did become Kent Park. And so in 1967, Dr. Gelman, who was a close friend of Fred's, made a motion to name this area after FW Kent Park, because that is the one that brought them to know this property. And so Mrs. Martin Schlesinger seconded that motion, and it was voted unanimously. And so the great thing was that usually you get a property named after you after you've passed away or you've done something and you're no longer here. But Fred got to visit Kent Park when he was still alive in his later years. Here's a picture of Fred. I believe this one's from 1972, him standing out at the entrance sign right off of Highway 6. And so today, FW Kent Park is 1,062 acres. It has a 27-acre lake that we fully restored in 2019. It has a campground and a youth group camp, our conservation education, and very recently and very appropriately, we added a bird blind for people to come out here, be able to get out of the elements, to kind of disguise themselves and hide, and photograph and watch birds and document birds. And so that's a really cool opportunity for us to share that legacy of what Fred Kent loved with our entire community and visitors to our community. And let me see, I don't know what else. And so I think I'm ready for the discussion part. If nobody has any pictures, I will show some of the photos that we have been given. I have an old pair of Fred Kent's glasses that appear to be from the 1950s or 60s. Somebody donated those to us. We get a lot of pictures from our collection. Here's a postcard that was sent to Earl Berglund. I'm going to put it up here on my camera so you guys can see it. I always got a joke about it. I always thought Fred Kent was the meme maker before memes were a thing, right? Here he is. He loved that house at 303. Here he is looking down on it. And this was a postcard he sent out in 1981. Here's another one that he made this. And I always thought this goes really well with the discussion. That's Fred paddling the canoe with his wife in the front. So, you know, him being able to document the history of the Iowa River before there was a reservoir there, to travel between Iowa City and Burlington, which was a very common route in the early settlement of the state of Iowa. You know, the territorial capital being at Burlington at one time, this the city of Iowa City then becoming the state capital, the first state capital. There's a strong history there. And he participated in that. He traveled that same river that probably many settlers, many politicians would have traveled over the years. And again, we talk about his great history, being a photographer, aerial photographer in World War II. Here's one of the early days of FW Kent Park that he went up and photographed. And we have the Greencastle Airport just a mile north of Kent Park. And so it all ties together so well, the history, the story, the perspectives that he allows us to discuss today. So I'd like to open it up to questions, unless Jess or Liz has anything else that we'd like to add, and let people ask us the hard questions.
Oh, Brett, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that. I learned so much from you, and I think and all of us here are, living in the area, and to live here is to feel a connection with Kent Park. I've spent a lot of
Here's
time
one
there.
more, Jess, I
Oh,
forgot to share.
show me.
His meme days. There's
Yeah.
the Volkswagen Beetle, right? We're documenting history, and he's in a snowstorm. I don't think that really happened, but it looks great.
Yeah, we noticed here too, Liz and I were just talking this morning about there's some manipulation, like before Photoshop, there's like some early digital manipulation and collage, which is something really special about his work. And it's so fun because he documented so much quite seriously, a literal perspective, and then you find that and you get to learn something completely about his personality and how fun he is. And we got to see some of, I think, Christmas cards that Allison had at the State Historical Society, which was so fun to see. But yeah, I was just saying that I think all of us feel very connected to Kent Park. I've been to the bird blind. I spent a lot of time at the your storybook trail through the pandemic with my little one. It's just a really easy place to fall in love with nature and calm. And I feel so connected to Kent in that way because I love the park and everything that you guys are doing there. Thank you for sharing that history. I do want to open it up for questions. I want to share again with our guests. You can get into the chat or you can get into the Q&A. If you just have something that you'd like to share too, I think again, we all of us have a collective history of FW Kent. This is he's meant a lot of different things to all of us in a lot of different ways. So if you want to chime in, please let me know. I'd be happy to share the mic with you. We have a couple questions in the Q&A that I'm going to open up. Well, first is a comment from Amanda McFadden. Thank you. I agree. Amanda says these side-by-side photos that of course were from Tim and Justin need to be a sequel exhibit to the current Kent exhibit at Old Cap. Liz and I couldn't agree more. As we were going through and digging in, we were just like, there's not enough space. We want this to be bigger. There's so much more to say here. And we love those side-by-side photos, particularly those ones where you're standing in not just the different approaches, but that same angle. I never get tired of those. We did that in a recent exhibit. The University of Iowa celebrated its 175th birthday, and we had an exhibit dedicated to that. And we took some older photos by Kent, and we here on site took similar ones from similar perspectives and gave that back and forth. But I could look at those. We need many of those. I could look at that all day. Can we put a pitch into the exhibits committee, Liz?
I'll talk to someone.
All right, very good. We happen to know the director, so maybe we'll see how that goes. Thank you for that. We have an anonymous attendee says, did he have a staff or a staff of photographers, or did he just do it all by himself? And I don't know the answer to that, but I know that if he would have been starting the University Photo Service, that would have been growing. And I remember reading that his budget was increasing, and so he would have had to have been bringing people on. Does anyone else know much about that in our panel, or maybe someone in the audience even? It's a great question. I think to have started the entire archival process and to be, I did always hear a lot of stories about how he was in many places at once. Like, it didn't have a 9 to 5. It was like, if there's a game, he's there. If there's going to be a parade, he's there. It was just whatever was going on. But I think as that grew, he certainly would have had proteges and people that he was teaching. That's a special part about working and being really talented at a university, is that you get to teach. So I certainly what he was working on grew to be bigger than him. And I think the photo departments that we have today have been built on what he started. Thank you for that question.
I don't know the answer specifically to that question. Yeah. I will just say that given the volume of work that he did, and how much time it took to do darkroom work when you had to process every, piece of film that you shot and then make a print of it, he had to have some help, even if it was only on the darkroom side of things, maybe students or employees, I don't know. But unless he was just like superhuman in the darkroom, I don't see how he did it all by himself.
Yeah, it couldn't be possible. Well, and it's interesting because in our archives, everything is really listed and documented so well, but sometimes it'll say it's part of the Kent collection, and sometimes it will say created by Kent. So there might be some difference there, but it's a great question. Sarah Keene has an excellent comment. And Sarah, if you're still here, I want to invite you to say this to the group if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, I'd be happy to read it. I'm looking for your name here. And there you are. I'm going to allow you to talk and give you an opportunity. Sarah, can you hear me? Are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for being here. And thank you so much for your comment. Would you share with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the university archivist here at the University of Iowa, and just wanted to let folks know that the libraries have been in the process of digitizing. Well, we've digitized or had a vendor digitize the thousands of nitrate negatives that we had from Kent from 1920s through, I think, into the 1940s. And as you can imagine, it takes a while to load those into the Iowa Digital Library. But we hope to continue doing that. As a first batch, we've uploaded over 1,400 images from the 1920s and 30s and 40s of university theater productions. So if you want to get a sense of what theater productions were being put on back in the day, you can see those in the Iowa Digital Library. And yeah, we have a lot more coming, but upload rates for those materials are kind of slow, so it'll take us a while, but in the next few years, you'll definitely see a lot more Kent, so it should be exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I put the link that you shared in the chat, so everyone should be able to see it. And thank you for that work and letting us know about that. We have a very wonderful friend of the museums that's joined us, Alice Atkinson. I would love for you to get to ask your question aloud. I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk if you can see it or are open to it. Please join us. Alice, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thanks for being here, Alice. It's so nice to have you here. This question would be maybe more pointed to Brad, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
We love Kent Park and the resources, and we spend a lot of time there. And I wondered if the area is still being documented. I see pictures on Facebook, and I wonder if there is any a program that's documenting the park and how it's developed.
Yeah, and I think in the chat you said who uses the Kent Park resources and is the area still being documented? Brad, can you speak to that?
Yeah, great questions, Alice. Alice actually has served on our conservation board out here and is a great friend of us. I think Alice is everybody's friend. Yes. And so who uses Kent Park today? That's a great question. We welcome everybody to Kent Park, right? We think there's a little bit of something for everybody here. We have a free swimming beach at our lake. We have an 86 site campground, which families will use. We have a youth group camp, which a lot of youth groups and church organizations use for gatherings. We have our Conservation Education Center. We have numerous trails that dog walkers and people that want to get away from the rat race of maybe the busy downtown Iowa City area can come out and enjoy. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody. And yes, we document everything out here. We take a lot of photos, just like the university does. And it's changing, right? These aren't, there's no negatives. There's no film anymore. I remember still buying film in the little plastic canisters, but we don't do that anymore. Everything's digital. And so we have an archive of photos. We utilize the archive of photos that we have from here that we've been going back to the 1960s and 70s and looking at the development of this park so we can do maintenance out here. So yes, all that documentation is still occurring out here, and we try to bring it up every once in a while in programming.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Alice. Another special friend to the museums, Andy Dahl, is in the chat. I'm going to allow him to speak here. Andy, can you hear us? Are you there? He's asking a couple of questions, and also a good time for a shameless plug. We're doing a tree tour tomorrow on Friday on West Campus with Andy, who is our UI arborist and a great friend to the museums and all of campus. Andy is everyone's friend. So please join us tomorrow at noon for that if you're watching live. Andy, did you have a question?
Well, thank you for the plug. I just want to say what a great program. And I have used quite a few of his photos and presentations, much like the ones that were shown in the presentation, how, side by side on some of these trees, he took quite a few pictures of the buildings, but some of these historic buildings had historic trees, and it's always fun to do side by side, 50, 100 years later. It's really neat. So he was visionary, and it's hard to believe that this many years later people are still using his photos. It's neat. It's a testament to what he did. That's all I had right now. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, Andy. We'll see you tomorrow. I saw also in the question and answer, and I think Allison, you mentioned this, and maybe even Brad as well. But there was a question in case someone missed it. Where was Fred and Clara's home located?
Yes, I misspoke. I think I said Ronald Street, but it was 302 Richards Street in Iowa City is where their family home was.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. Let's see. I have one more question here. Scott Schrader says, what kind of equipment did he use? And I think that that's a complicated question because that would have changed over time. So in some of the research that I did, I learned some really fascinating things about different types of equipment that he was using, and some of it that he kind of pioneered himself. He was really exploratory in new types of color photography and was exploring that from a young age around the campfire, playing with light, and used a lot of different types of equipment. When we went to visit Allison, she was so kind to pull out. Allison, help me. What are they called? The you put the slides in, and what is that called?
Yeah, the stereo slides.
Yeah, and so lots of different equipment, and through the years, it was really changing the types of things that he was putting out. And I know Tim and Justin, you had some things that you recognized by looking at photos themselves. You would say like, oh, this must have been this or that. Do you know? Anyone speak more to that?
I mean, just looking at pictures of him working, and knowing when he worked, it looks to me like he would have gone from, in the early days, shooting on a lot of large negative cameras, like 4x5s maybe. But then as the photographic technology improved, I would guess by the end of his career, he was shooting primarily 35 millimeter. But the people who have been digitizing his work could probably speak to that better than I could.
Yeah, and that really leads us into a great final question that I'm going to share here today by Bill. Thank you for your question, Bill. Is there a special collection of just Kent Park photos by F.W. Kent, and where are they located? And I think that kind of ties into what Tim was just saying. So I know that these things can be found in many places, but I really think the State Historical Society is a wonderful place to start. It's such a cool place to be also, and everyone there is very connected with what is there, and there is a huge amount of photos in collections and archives there dedicated to his time as a naturalist. And through many years, also there's a book that he co-authored with his son about birds of eastern Iowa. And so these collections are very well organized and accessible. Allison, do you want to pick it up and tell everyone a little bit more as we're ending here about what you have there and how can people get their hands on it?
You just have to ask us and tell us what you're interested in, and then we can try to get it out for you. And you can come in during our open hours. We just kind of start there. I also have inventories of the collections here that I can send out by email just to help people narrow down kind of what they're looking for, and just to help them understand what's here. But yeah, reserve a lot of time if you're going to come by because there's a lot to see.
He
So
was so prolific, and you've done
yeah,
such an excellent job documenting everything, and everything is so organized and accessible. Well, I want to say thank you to our panelists so much for being here. This has been a wonderful program, but also such a fun exploratory process for Liz and myself and our whole team. We feel so special to have this exhibit up and to be able to take the time to speak with people who we respect so much and admire about their perspective, and build a greater story. That's part of what we do. We tell stories to the public with our exhibits, and then we want to tell bigger stories and learn more. So I'm so appreciative of your time here today, and to all of our attendees. Again, this session has been recorded, so we will save it, and it will go up at the Pentacrest Museums website, so it can be repurposed in the future. Please come see the exhibit while it's up. Please go visit places at the FW Kent Park and the State Historical Society, and keep in touch with us so you can see what's coming up next. I thank you for being here, and have a wonderful day. All right. Bye, everyone.